Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Today in Mañana. I'm Michael, happy to be joined by Xavier on a beautiful Thursday morning. Good morning, Pops. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
All right, yeah, I'm doing good too. All right, it's always a good day when you're on Today in Mañana.
Absolutely,
right?
Exactly.
As always, we are very happy to be presented by Emergent Financial Services, powered by our wonderful sponsors, Charlottesville Opera, Craddock Serious Insurance, Matthias Realty, and of course, FABA, the premier Latino business and networking group here in Charlottesville. As always,
I like
Pops,
the way you do that. I really like
Alex did it once, and it's just like I feel like I got to keep up the tradition.
You got to keep it up, absolutely.
You know?
Otherwise, you just never know what's going to happen.
And always a big thank you to all our viewers who are going to be watching today. What do we got to do every time?
So it's important to like and share, and if you want, you can even subscribe.
There you go.
See, this is the line that I have to remember all the
exactly.
time.
We give them one simple line. One simple line. One simple line. You just got to like, share, subscribe. And half the time you get it right. It's impressive.
It is impressive. It is.
But yeah, we're very happy to be here with you on this beautiful morning. We got a nice fall day.
We do.
We're getting very close to Thanksgiving.
It's next week.
It's next week.
Actually, we've got to remember to wish everybody happy Thanksgiving because we're not on next Thursday.
Yes. Good thing you mentioned that. I'll be honest, I was going to be like, yeah, we got another show. But I got to remember to wish people happy
remember
Thanksgiving.
at the end of the show.
At the end, exactly. Remind me at the end of the show what's important. Don't remind me at the beginning. I'll forget by then. We always have that issue whenever we got to be like, he's like, oh, remind me of something that I got to do later. So I'm like, hey, you got to do that thing later. I say that immediately. And then, of course, 3 hours later, when I'm supposed to remind him, I forget, you forget. And then it's like, oh. And then it's only after you're supposed to do it. It's like, hey, did you do that thing that you were supposed to do 2 hours ago? No. Okay. But I will remember to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
That's why I write things down now. Everything. I write everything.
Did you write that down?
No, I'm not gonna. I don't have a pen first. Well, I do have a pen here somewhere. Okay. I'm not going to write that down, though, because I want to forget.
Okay, well, then make sure you remind me, because now it's on you, because you mentioned it first.
There you are. It's on me.
But speaking of Thanksgiving, we got some wonderful Thanksgiving treats in front of us, and I feel like maybe we should kind of move straight into our wonderful guest.
We have to. The faster, the better.
Absolutely. So we are very happy now to be joined by Christine Day from Miss Day Delights and Chelsea Miller from Naturally You Self-Care. Christine, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah,
good morning.
Thanks for having us.
No, it's our pleasure. So, Christine, I'll start with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you started Miss Day Delights?
So I've been baking for a really long time. I think the first thing I baked was a peanut butter cookie. It's one of my favorite cookies. And ever since then, I worked in multiple food industries, hospitality, and then ended up in healthcare for 9 years, but was still doing my baking on the side. And then 2023, it was just too busy. I was really, really busy. So then this year, I quit UVA in April and dedicated to my business.
Yeah. So basically, as you were working, you kind of had a little side business of kind of baking treats. So how did that work when you were kind of like still working? Like was it like friends or family?
Yeah, friends, family, people at work. Just cakes here. Little pastries on the side, and I would bring it to work also. So yeah.
Okay, like a little taste testing?
Yes.
So kind of where did you get like your inspiration from like baking and like cooking, like all these different recipes?
So, I don't know if people are familiar with Pantops, but there's an everyday cafe there, and I worked there for a really long time.
Cool.
And we would, cook all the time there. But just the thought of, or just the actions of cooking really brings me joy. Okay. So the baking, I would bake for friends all the time. So,
and how did it feel when you kind of took that plunge? Because that's a big step.
Yeah, that is a big step.
Honestly, it's scary. It's
scary.
really, really
scary.
I can imagine. But I have a lot of support, and I'm really glad I did it.
Awesome. All right. What about you, Chelsea? How did you start Naturally You Self-Care?
So it's kind of a labor of two loves. My last year of high school and first year of college, I was in cosmetology, so I have my cosmetology license. I was really enjoying, doing hair, mostly styles and stuff. And then I got really into gardening, and I really just started to kind of embrace being outside. I realized how much I love nature and plants and having my hands in the dirt. And so I kind of pulled things together, and, you know, I take the natural ingredients and I can use them if I still do hair, and it was just kind of the perfect way to put those together.
You mentioned gardening, and from the gardening expert, that's become his
Oh.
new
Well, I would
hobby.
say, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I just, you know, the reason I like gardening, and I just like to grow things that we can literally eat.
Yes.
I'm not a kind of gardener that grows flowers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's what Mama wants him to do, but that's...
But I just like it because, you know, I'm just still amazed. You just put a little seed in the ground, and then like by the end of the summer, there's this big plant producing fruits or, you know, vegetables or tomatoes, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I sit there and go, wow, how did that happen, you know?
So, Chelsea, I'm going to ask the same question I asked Christine. So, kind of, how did it feel taking kind of that plunge into kind of like starting your own little business?
So it was kind of weird. Like, I started it a little bit. So I guess to go back a little bit, I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer. And so I actually started dabbling in this a little bit when I was in North Carolina, and I was in law school. And when I got there, it just, you know, I gave it the time. It didn't feel right. I stayed at the same school, and I went to business school. Practiced a little bit, you know, had the pandemic to work on things. And pretty much right after that is when I kind of went into doing markets, and actually kind of along the same timeline as her, I went completely out of the, you know, regular workforce in May. And just took this on full force because I felt like I was at a point where I needed to give it more time to grow to really make it what I wanted it to be.
And so you focus on kind of like self-care products and like, you know, bath soaps and stuff. Can you kind of explain, you know, kind of what makes your kind of, before we were kind of the show, you were kind of talking about the natural ingredients. You want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so I think what's really important for me is just making better things more accessible to more people. I think a lot of people get stuck in, I have to use this, but it's not great for you, but it's cheap. And so that was always really important to me. I think a lot of the natural products a lot of times you see them at just a price point that not everybody can reach. And so just making things that are better for you, better for your home, you know, better just to enjoy, it makes me feel really good about allowing more people to put their hands on that.
Yes, and that's so important, right, today. I mean, whether it be food or you know, product that you use around the house or that you put on yourself. I mean, sometimes we don't think about that. We take a cream, we just put it on you, and you know, you go back and you read what's behind that cream. Is like, you know, it's like it takes you 10 minutes to read through the whole thing, and you
You gotta go to Google. It's like synthetic food jargon. It's like, wait, what is this stuff?
Exactly. So it's always wonderful to be able to say, you know. Look at the products, look at what you're eating, and see what's in there, and make sure that which especially you're applying to your body or the air around you is the most natural that you can certainly, you know, in some cases afford, but that you can use, right?
Yeah,
So
I think there's been a conscious effort lately among people, and it's really wonderful when like small business owners such as yourselves, kind of like whether baking or, you know, cosmetics, that you can eat stuff and put stuff on your face that you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Stuff that you feel good about.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, like it just felt like there was such a time when it's just like, you know, even laundry detergents, like people just kind of like, why is all this stuff in there? It's like some people have allergic reactions to that. We felt like we were trying to pull people away from natural foods and natural cosmetics. When in reality, it's like, well, other people have been having these methods for like thousands of years before we decided to switch to all this kind of, you know, genetically modified ingredients. So I feel like it's nice to kind of go back to that natural kind of living.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know you both are at the markets, right? So is that where you began to display your particular products?
Yes. Yeah. Penn Park, well, this is my first year ever doing the farmers markets. So we met at the Penn Park area, but it's an awesome market there. And just getting around to different markets and getting your name out there is it's incredible.
So that's been very, very helpful, the idea that you go to the markets and people get to see you and taste your, in this case, taste your product or use your products, and then they like and then they reach back, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Now,
they can use that product to taste that one. I mean,
I mean, some of them you potentially could.
Yeah.
It may not taste great, but you could eat it.
Do you remember the movie Mrs. Doubtfire with Robert Williams? I don't know if There's a little scene, remember when he's trying to hide his face from the woman because he still got to pretend to be Mr. So he sticks his face in like the buttercream. And the lady goes, what do you have on your face? Goes, oh, it's natural buttercream. It's so good. You keep you smooth. And then the lady, when it falls, she's like trying to put some on her face.
Well, what I do though, actually, just recently, Herbitarian tea, I blended their tea into my cookies and made a shortbread. So it was a chai tea cookie. So yeah, it was one of their teas that they sell. So people were like, "Oh, I love your shortbread. Where did you get your tea?" And I'm like, "Well, their tea is right over there."
That's incredible. That's great. I like those kind of.
That's great marketing for both ends. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's really cool. I didn't know that you did that, but I actually used 2 of their tea blends in my massage oils and a bath salt.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I mean they're great.
So you could be bathing in the oil while eating.
Yes.
And then drinking the tea.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I guess if you really like chai, I guess you could.
Well, chai I like actually.
Oh, you
Chinese
do like chai?
tea, I actually like chai. I like the flavor of chai. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
I'm not a great tea drinker. But
Christine.
Yes.
I was going on your Facebook and I noticed there was a cake that you made. I assume a kid's birthday party, but
Yes.
it was this Deadpool Wolverine cake, and it was massively impressive. You might just kind of talk a little bit of how you kind of came up with that?
So my friend Chanel, her son Lucas, his birthday, his 10th birthday, and he really loves Wolverine and Deadpool. So she gave me some ideas and or sent me some inspiration pictures. Usually I like to be, use my own imagination, my artistic ability to create, what I want. So yeah, I kind of sketch out what I think the cake will look, and then I design it.
Wow. So you mean you sketch it out like by hand, like drawing?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I usually sketch it out like a little blueprint of what I want to do, and because I do 3D cakes also. So I draw it and then I sculpt it.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
So I guess you bake whatever it is, put the dough and all that stuff together.
The cake.
The cake dough, whatever it is.
And cut
then
it.
you
and
cut it
just
into whatever
with
design.
with the Wolverine and the Deadpool, that was just a stack cake, but then I used modeling chocolate to do the little pieces.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask, because there was like the little swords.
Yeah,
Like, how did
so those
you
are
do-
modeling chocolate. I try not to use fondant. I know some people are pretty picky with the food coloring, so I try not to use as much. But for the sculpted cakes, I usually just sculpt the cakes and carve them out, and then lay the buttercream, and then just design from there.
No, you should.
It's like,
I don't know if you guys
it's like the
see-
Michelangelo of cakes.
But no, it was so impressive. I was looking at it, I was like, oh my goodness, how long did it take you to make that?
So it can take a couple hours. Yeah,
A couple hours? Man, I
it's
thought it would take days.
I mean, a day or so to prep the cake ahead of time, and then you got to let the cake cool, and obviously it has to be cold to carve. So there's different steps.
Oh wow. Did you have to like look up how other people did it? Like, do you used to have like Food Network shows? Did you
Well, I do watch Food Network a lot.
Okay.
And they do have they do sculpted cakes too.
Yeah.
So it's a process. It is a process.
Yeah, and you also were generous enough to bring some of your treats here. I don't know if you want to show it to the viewers right there. You have, was it pecan bars?
So these are the popular items at the market, at the farmer's market. So I do have a pecan bar and a cranberry white chocolate oatmeal. And yeah, they're one of my favorites too. My husband's like, if you have any more cranberry white chocolate oatmeal.
He's probably like, stop selling them all.
He's like, do you have any leftovers?
Exactly. He goes into the kitchen. He's like, I'm dying for a pecan bar. It's like, they're all gone. They're all gone. You sold them all.
Yes.
My mom does that too, because my brothers, and his sister-in-laws, every once in a while, I'll be like, she made like something. So I'll be like, let me go have one. I'm like, they're all gone. What happened? So I gave them to your brothers. I'm like, what about me and my father? What about us? I'm going with chopped liver here. It's like they're all gone.
It's true, right? That's like
How
come I have leftovers? I give it away. It's like, what? I was hoping for it.
And I know you're also taking Thanksgiving orders. So how does that
Yes.
process work for baking for Thanksgiving? I mean, it might be a little too late, but
Well, yeah. So the 22nd is the last day to place orders.
what's today?
It's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay,
tomorrow's
okay.
the last day.
So
But-
we made it just in time. Okay.
So
Still got time.
Yeah,
Still
they
got
still
time.
have time. But I have a lot of pies, and I have treat boxes going out and pecan bars. So yeah,
Nice. What kind of pies?
I'm doing apple, sugar cream, and pumpkin.
Sugar cream.
What's that?
Sugar cream, it's a lot of sugar. It's sugar and heavy cream.
Might buy it.
Wait, it's got milk and sugar, isn't that your thing?
There you are.
Yes, but it's perfect. It's known as like an Indiana pie. My father used to make it every Thanksgiving. So,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting. I don't think I've ever heard of a sugar cream pie.
I
Wow.
don't think I've had that
yeah,
either. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
really good.
And you do apple pies. And,
Apple pie and pumpkin pie.
pumpkin pie. Okay. Do you have a favorite pie?
Ooh,
Is it the sugar cream?
it is the sugar cream. Yeah.
Well, I can already see the nostalgia.
Oh, blueberry too. I love blueberry.
Oh, blueberry.
With the streusel on top.
Blueberry is very good. Yeah. And
So
Chelsea, I
what-
did
so
have
let me ask-
a quick question
what-
for Chelsea.
Okay. Oh, I was going to ask Chelsea. Well, go ahead. You can ask
No,
yours
go ahead.
first.
No, it's
Okay.
all right.
So my question was, so you talked a little bit about how you were into gardening, right? And then, you eventually got into self-care. Do you, like in whatever it is that you produce, the creams, oils, etc., do you grow anything in particular to make those products?
I do. As much as I can, I try to use my own. Like, I do a rose water. I use my own roses for as long as I can.
Oh, wow.
I grow lavender, rosemary, herbs that I put in different things. So
Peppermint, mint, things like that too?
Yep, I do. So, not a ton right now, but I've kind of got plans. I've got big plans for next year. But yeah, I try to grow as much as possible. And then what I can't or don't grow, I just try to make sure I source well.
Of course.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit. So I always wonder how that works. So you take the lavender. I'm always doing that. You take the lavender, right? And then do you make an oil out of it, or is it just for the aroma in the case of the lavender?
So what I use it for right now is kind of just for the aroma and for the aesthetics. I do I call it a limited, I do a salve and a wildflower soap through the summertime, and it has dead nettle in it, which is that little purple flower that everybody thinks of as like a weed in your yard. It is so great for your skin. It has a ton of benefits, so I do that, and I actually infuse olive oil. So, and there's a couple different ways that you can do that. I let it sit like on a shelf for a couple weeks to infuse. So there's a lot of different things that you can do with herbs, florals, and you can use them directly. You can dry them. You can infuse them. So
infusing basically means you drop them in the oil and just let that aroma or whatever it is go.
you just kind of let it sit. You can do like a quick infusion and put it in a mason jar and put it in a pot with like boiling water for a certain amount of time. Or you can just do like a shelf infusion.
Wow. So it takes a little time to actually create the products that you're doing. So it's probably a process whereby...
It's kind of a good rotation.
Yeah.
Like the body oils that I do, I infuse those for 4 weeks before I put them out to sell. And it's a blend of oils, essential oil, and then that's what I use the Herbitarian's teas for. So I infuse those before I put them out.
Okay. Wow. So it's a labor of love. I mean, it's not just going out and buying things and putting them together. You
for
actually
sure.
do. Wow.
And when people kind of come for your self-care, do you help people out? For example, it's like, let's say I got like dried hands. Like, do you kind of help people kind of recommend, this is the kind of oil that you need to help dry skin? Or if, let's say, you get like rashes, like an oil to help rashes?
I do as much as I can. I try to make sure I have a little bit of something for everybody. So there's a couple of things that I have that are really good for sensitive skin, for eczema, for people that deal with rosacea or their skin gets irritated really easily. Oats is really good for that. So I do like a bath soak. My niece and nephews, they all have super sensitive skin, and 2 of them have eczema. So they love like the oatmeal bath salt. It's really good and calming for your skin. And that's another big reason that I like to keep the ingredients simple and clean, because that's stuff that most people can bear and most people's skin loves.
Yeah. Do people ever come to you and ask you questions about, hey, I have this issue, and kind of?
Yeah, definitely. And again, there's some stuff that I haven't dealt with personally, or I don't know somebody with that issue. So I try to recommend as well as I can, and always, tell people to give something a try. Most people that have like, really heavy irritations to things, they'll know, or allergies, stuff like that. But yeah, I try to put something out there for everybody because I think it's really great stuff. I think it helps a lot of people.
And I have a quick question about oils, because sometimes people like put oils. Is there a problem with putting oil too much on your skin or on your hair?
I think that's kind of a debate, because it's a popular thing now to do. I can't think of what it's called, but basically using oil on your skin to pull the oil out of your skin. Okay. I haven't quite wrapped my head around that just yet. But I think you have to either try it or just kind of know, because everybody's different. Trying stuff out, different oils. Lighter oils are going to be better if you want something on your face. Heavier oils are good, for foot creams. So yeah, just either trying it out, or if people, the more that people can tell me, the better I can help them. So if somebody's just kind of getting into this, teenagers, young teens, young adults always love like how my booth looks, and it grabs their attention, certain colorful things. But sometimes at a younger age, you don't really know what your skin is like yet. And it also changes. Problems, right? Yeah, it also changes sometimes.
I remember it's just like, what can you give me to help the pimples?
Right. Yeah. And there's some things that I think are pretty. I guess kind of general across the board. Most people can use them, like a toner that I do. That's really great for acne. So yeah, some things are definitely very useful. Some things are more specific.
What areas of self-care have you seen in your experience that people neglect maybe the most?
I think more than anything, like the mental aspect of it, like that's a big thing I talk about with, for example, the bath teas. They have benefits when you are kind of sitting and steeping essentially in the tea. But it's also, it's calming for the mind. I think that's a big thing, the self-care, not just for the physical appearance of it, but for the relaxation of it.
So I did have a question. So you know how in the summer a lot of people constantly put the sunscreens, right, to block the sun and not get eventually, I guess, melanoma. And I always one of the things that I'm always concerned about. Like I said, you read what's on there and you go, is that any good for my skin?
Yeah.
I mean, what are the benefits of it, right? Are there any oils or anything that one can use in lieu of that?
So I'll answer this lightly because I haven't gotten very deep into it. But carrot seed oil is one that's really good in natural sunscreens. That's not something that I've made yet, but I've looked into it a little bit. So I know that's one that's really good. Outside of that, I can't answer that question very well. But I know that's one that is meant to be really good and a natural way to kind of help that. But yeah, stuff like that, it's really easy to, it's easy to just grab the sunscreen off the shelf, but things like that, your skin absorbs so much. So it's definitely important to think about what you're putting on. Yeah.
Because I always wondered about that. It's like,
you're on the precipice of going into conspiracy theory area. So.
Right. Yeah.
There's been a lot of talk about it's like, because skin cancer's kind of been on the rise. So some people have been like, this, sunscreen.
Everything's a carcinogen.
Yeah. So again, I don't know. I just, I love a good conspiracy theory.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, and I know this was probably the wrong thing, but when we were young, a lot of, you walk around and a lot of people had that baby oil, and they just put all this baby oil on them, right? They'd be sitting there in the sun like this, and it looked like they were just cooking, frying, and I'm looking like, I'm not sure if that's really any good for you, right? I mean, I was young. I didn't put anything because I could care less.
You were like the Top Gun guys, when you played volleyball, you put all the oils.
I didn't have that. No, but I just went to the beach to have fun and go in the water and then get dry and go in the water again. That's why I didn't think about oils and stuff in the sunburn. But over time, right, we recognized that probably wasn't good for you, and they've created everything else. But I always wonder, like I said, you read the back of this, like, what am I putting on myself, right? And is there anything that's better for me that maybe it doesn't block the whole sun, which the sun's always been there for billions of years, so I can't imagine it's that bad for you. But is there something that can help you protect if you're gardening all day like I do? Right. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to actually see you use products that, like, for example, you could actually cook and eat. Like, for example, coconut oil or olive oil. I mean, both of those you use in baking or you can use in cooking, So it's like it would make sense to be able to drink it, but also kind of put it on your skin. So
Yeah.
And it's an antiseptic, right? It's antibacterial, whatever. It's
Oh my
called.
gosh, coconut oil is great for so many
Yeah.
things. Yeah.
Yeah. And olive oil too. I've heard like a lot of people kind of go into the benefits of olive oil as well. I don't know, anti-inflammatory, something like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I think it's just that is something that's so important to me, just having things that people know. Like you said, talking about the ingredients on the back of things, and you don't even know what probably over half that stuff is. Or, you'll see a lotion that you'll pick up off the shelf, and it's like, oh, it has cocoa butter. It's so great for you. But then when you look at it, cocoa butter is like the next to last thing on the list.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like, where's that cocoa butter?
Right.
It's like when you used to do like the lemonade thing, and it's like 5 other ingredients, and then like lemon juice. It's like, but this is lemonade, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with the baked goods. I bake everything from scratch.
Wonderful.
Organic flour, sugar cane,
Organic.
and,
Wow,
and
that is great.
Kerrygold butter. So
Oh,
Yeah.
that is the best butter.
It is.
it is. It is.
Oh my
Like you can
goodness.
tell the difference when you eat the cookies.
No, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Now you're making me even more.
I remember when because I know even now Costco sells it, but when we used to live in California, and the first time we saw the Keurig butter, right? It was like
Kerrygold.
Kerrygold, yeah,
Kerrygold.
and it was I never remember.
You
names,
say
but it-
Keurig, that's the coffee thing.
Yeah, yeah, Keurig.
You were close. You got the
Yeah, I
K.
was close. I got the K part right. I know when I go by it, I know exactly. But you open the butter and it's beautiful. The color was it's like yellow, right? As opposed to like some of the butters you open, it's like they're like white, and you realize how good that is for you,
Well,
So-
even their packaging is pretty.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah, I
Gold,
know.
gold and silver. Gold and silver,
and
right?
silver, yeah.
Salted and unsalted.
I know, the gold, it's the salted butter. Oh my goodness.
On a toast.
Yeah.
Organic toast.
Ooh, okay. But so absolutely, it's been a pleasure having you both on. Before we let you go, where can people find you,
Well,
Christina?
hold on, hold
I'll
on.
start with-
Before they go, can I taste one of these?
Oh, you want to taste?
Yes, of course, of course. There's
So-
the pecan bars and then the cranberry white chocolate.
Well, I'm going to do the cranberry white chocolate because I love cranberries. Well, thank you, because
Would you like to try it?
I've been staring at this the whole show, and I
Why
said, wait a
should he
minute.
get all the fun? Thank you so much. I tried pecan butter.
Oh, wow. That's delicious.
Good stuff, right?
I can taste the Kerrygold. No, that is delicious.
The power of suggestion.
Very good.
Yeah, so I'll
Very
have
good.
those on Saturday.
Wow. So actually, that'll lead into my next question. So where can people get these delicious treats?
Yeah, so people can reach me on Facebook through Miss Day Delights and the same thing through Instagram.
Miss Day Delights. And you also at the market, is that every Saturday?
Every Saturday.
Every Saturday.
From 9 to 1 on Water Street.
On the Water Street side.
On the Water
And they're
Street.
next to each other, right?
Yes. So
We're usually pretty close.
Pretty close, okay.
So you can find me in a couple of places. My website is naturallyyouselfcare.com. I'm on Facebook and Instagram at Naturally You Self-Care Co. and on TikTok at Naturally You Self-Care.
You have a TikTok.
Yes.
So
Wow.
what are the videos are like?
Who?
Is it you making the oil?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
usually kind of, I did one recently like an ASMR style of an unboxing of some new candle jars and lots of ingredients and little kind of behind the scenes things.
So you sell candles also?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
candles, wax melts. I do a little bit of everything.
Everything, all right. It's good to know.
Yeah.
So those are great, certainly like now that Christmas
Great
is coming.
Christmas presents.
Yeah.
Great Christmas
Lots of
presents.
great stocking stuffers.
That's fantastic.
Wonderful. All right. Well,
Well, thank you
Christine,
so
Chelsea,
much.
thank
Yeah,
you both
this has
for
been
coming
fantastic.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
coming.
Thank
and,
you so much.
Yeah, and the best of luck to
Yeah.
both of you, because I know this. You start a new business and you're nervous, but I know you're both going to do very,
Yeah.
very well.
Thank you so much for having us.
No, it's
Thank
been
you.
our pleasure. Good luck. All right. Take
Thank
care.
you.
This is good.
I know. I was caught eating, and then I was like, oh, wait a second, I have to say goodbye. Let me quickly eat.
You have to say goodbye. Oh, you have to say goodbye to them.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Well, I can say
no.
goodbye to you. If you don't want to go, you can go. I guess, But I know you had a couple of finance topics you wanted to discuss a little bit before we kind of close out. I'll let you finish chewing because I know you just took a bite just as I was asking you. But I know last week we had covered something, because obviously post-election people have their thoughts and their concerns. And I know you kind of talked about what to expect potentially. You also talked about it on Real Talks. I wasn't sure whether there was something in that area more you kind of wanted to talk about and discuss.
Yeah, so just to kind of like expand on some things, because, obviously every time there's a change in administration, right, there's the expectations that there's going to be something different, right? And historically, it's, that has occurred. But I think, the more I look into what this administration is doing, the more I realize that there's going to be drastic changes, right? The issue is you don't really know what the consequences of those changes are going to be. However, it's always good to begin to prepare for those events, right? So to give you an example, right, and you actually brought this up, right? So we talked a little bit about tariffs, right?
Yeah, tariffs is an interesting one because tariff seems to I think people don't have a very generic sense of what tariff is. It's like, oh, well, you're kind of putting a tax on a good or, basically, essentially. And I think there's been a lot of scare about tariffs. What was interesting is I saw an interview on CNBC at one point with, was it Harry Lutnick or Howard Lutnick?
Howard.
And he was talking about tariffs, and he says the idea is that, first of all, they are a negotiating tool. Yeah. Right? You say, hey, I want to put a tariff on this good, and then the other people will be like, oh, well, I don't want a tariff on that good that I'm trying to, export to you. Here, I'll take down the tariff that I have on one of your goods, and then already you kind of reduce both. But he made a good point about cars, and he says you go to Europe and you don't see an American car. They're all European cars, mostly BMWs or Mercedes-Benz, I think, are the two really big ones. Yeah, it's a lot of this Fiat,
things like that. Yeah, exactly.
And he says you want to know why. It's because Europe puts 100% tariff on American cars. So, of course, no European is going to buy an American car for double the price. I mean, that would be insane.
Right.
He goes, so if you went and you said, you know what, Europe, I'm going to put 100% tariff on any European cars that come here, there's either two things going to happen. Europe's going to come back and say, whoa, okay, let's renegotiate here. Because they're not going to want that because they export a lot of European cars to America. So they'll look to renegotiate, and then maybe you can get a drop in, the tariff imposed on U.S. cars going to Europe, and now suddenly, okay, maybe U.S. manufacturers can sell more cars in Europe. Or the reverse is that Europe says, no, we're not getting our tariff. So the U.S. says, fine, we'll put 100% U.S. tariff. Well, now what happens? American consumers are they're going to try to buy a Mercedes-Benz or, like you said, BMW and be like, oh, man, this is twice the price. I'm just going to go buy a Ford or a Chevy. And what happens, you're now indirectly also helping U.S. manufacturers. So it's not always an entirely bad thing when it comes to tariffs.
Exactly. And that's exactly, we kind of made that point a little bit yesterday, and Alex was alluding to the fact that, when you look at tariffs, right, you have to think about, first of all, what is it that we're importing, right? Typically, we're not importing food, right, in the sense of the essentials that you need to live on, whether it be, chicken and eggs and bread and milk, et cetera, right? So the expectation is that should stay where they are, right? We shouldn't see any more inflation in that sector, right, unless energy prices go up, right, because energy prices drive everything. But on everything else, you sit back and say, there's no way that, basically this administration said they're going to impose a 60% tariff, increase in tariff in Chinese goods. They know it. It's no way they're going to do on every single piece. It's just, again, it's a negotiating tool, right? And it's interesting to say about cars because, we do have a friend that lives in Greece, and he's always told me that. They don't call, what they do is they call it a value-added tax. He says, you go buy a particular car, and even some European cars, depending on which ones they are, right? There's an enormous tax. Okay, the car's worth $50,000, and then there's and he used to tell me this. When sometimes I said that doesn't make any sense, but it's the tariffs that are costing this. There's another $50,000 to $60,000 in value-added tax, and you go, that's ridiculous. How does that happen? Those are the tariffs, right? That's how you basically sit there and go, yeah, I can. That's a car I like, but I'm not paying another $60,000 in taxes, right, in order to own that car because I can buy something else that doesn't have that tax, right? So tariffs is an area where I think over the long run, it's going to be very beneficial to the U.S., right? Because we need to be able to compete on an even ground. And I've always talked about this, and that is the one area where the U.S. has an enormous disadvantage is labor costs, right? Because we have laws here that says you can't pay somebody below minimum wage. You have to pay them at least this, right, and higher. When you go to China and you go to Vietnam and you go to India and all of these other countries, right, there are none of these laws. I mean, they can pay 50 cents on per hour. So you sit and you go, there's a huge difference there because that labor's so cheap that they can produce more things cheaply. So if we're really worried about, and this is something that the UN always thinks about, we're really worried about people and how they live, then the right thing to do is say, well, in this case, because of the fact that you're charging on a labor cost so little, we're going to impose a tariff because what you really should be doing is paying your people more. And that should be good for their country, and it's good for our country because then we come back and say, well, we can also now do this at the same price, right?
Yeah.
Because it's when you talk about global trading, it's resources that you want to look at. In other words, let's say somebody has, oil, right? And somebody else, Europe has no oil, but in Saudi Arabia we have oil, gas. Those are things that's like, they don't have that resource. So how do we trade? What is it that they have that we don't have? And that's where the trading begins to saying, we can help each other because we need some of that resource that we don't have, and you need some of our resource we don't have. But when it comes to labor, I've always felt that to be an unfair practice because you're using people to underprice products, right? So I think tariffs in the long run are probably beneficial both to the country we're charging the tariff to, assuming they do the right thing, which is not hard to say, and also to this country, right? So again, when you think about the markets and the impact, you look at, and that's one area, and the other area that I think is going to be very beneficial to companies in this country is the reduction in some of the that word escaped my mind.
Regulations?
Regulations, yes. Because regulations have a tendency to really choke off the small business. You regulate a large business, and they're so big and they make so much money, they can say, a couple of million, no big deal. Just, pay it.
Well, think about it. Sometimes, too, it's like the law is so tricky. It's like, well, big companies can afford to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for a good lawyer to figure out what they got to follow.
Exactly.
Versus you're a small business. You're like trying to figure out yourself. And then it's like, someone comes and says, oh, you didn't do this right. Oh, you didn't do that right. It's like.
Exactly. So I think deregulation in some areas will be very beneficial to the small business community, right? And so I think from a perspective of, going forward, what are the areas of the marketplace that are going to benefit? I really do think, and it may not be, listen, it's one of the things, it may not be in 2 months, 6 months, or even a year. It could be a little longer. But I think the small corporations, small businesses are going to do well if that truly happens, right? So yesterday we were talking a little about, this is not about, all of a sudden changing everything you have in your portfolio, right? This is it's like decorating a house. When Christmas comes or Thanksgiving comes or 4th of July, you decorate your house based on the time of season, right? This is the same thing in the portfolio. So you still have the portfolio structure that you think is necessary and has the appropriate risk for a particular client. But on the side, you begin to say, tactically, is there something that we should be doing in order to potentially improve the returns of this portfolio based on what we think is going to happen? And again, nobody has a crystal ball, but if you begin to see what's going on, you say, these may be areas that will benefit, right? Just like what we do when the Fed says, I'm going to cut rates or I'm going to increase rates. Those are kind of like expectations that they may do it, most likely, but we're not 100% sure. But if they say they may do something, then how do you begin to transition your portfolio to take advantage of the fact that the Fed is either increasing rates or lowering rates? So again, there's just a lot going on. Again, when you look at this administration, that's actually good for the dollar, makes the dollar strong. But in reality, I know that both, Trump and Vance, et cetera, would like to keep the dollar lower because it makes imports cheaper. So it's a balance there. So which way is it going to work out? What you're proposing is good for the dollar, right, which makes the dollar stronger. So do you basically position your portfolios to take advantage of that? Or are you going to go into the marketplace and begin to lower the value of the dollar, right?
I won't mind a stronger dollar. It makes vacationing easy, huh?
That's right. Let's get that euro below 1.
Well, I said there was the American dollar to the Canadian dollar is like, and I remember we had gone to Canada, what was 14 years ago, something
Yeah,
like that. And
something
I
like that.
remember at that time, the Canadian dollar was worth more than the American dollar. I don't know if you remember that. I was like, what?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't remember that because
Oh.
I can't remember a time where the Canadian dollar was actually more than the.
Okay,
but
so
I
was
mean,
it-
it was in the 90s and now
Okay.
it's in the 70s. That's a huge difference.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean the
So it
Canadian
was
dollar
almost-
has taken
almost
has taken a real beat.
Yeah.
And so again, the thing about investing is, what can you do on the margin to improve the returns of your portfolio, right? And that's what you want to work on. You want to say, what's going on, what's happening, and how do we want to position our portfolio to take advantage of this in small steps, right? Because again, nothing's happened yet. Nothing's
Yeah.
going to happen till probably
Well,
February.
but you also
March.
want to readjust before things happen because you don't want to necessarily be too late at the same time. You don't want to react. You kind of want to attempt to anticipate at least.
True, but look what happened. I mean, right after the election, the markets took off, and then they came back, right?
Yeah.
Because they realized, wait a minute, we thought this is going to be this is what's the expectation. In other words, this administration's elected, and boom, the economy is now going to really flow very strongly. Well, it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's not going to happen next month, right? It's going to take a little time, and the more that they come across and say, this person is in charge of here, that person in charge of there, you now begin to reposition yourself. Well, what's he for? Like, for example, RFK, right? Pharmaceuticals are taking a hit. Why? Because we know that he's anti-big pharma, right? Vance, when you think about it, is anti-big tech. So those companies have taken a hit, right? In the expectations that they're going to do something, right? Are they really going to do something to impact those? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, sometimes you have to take a step back and say, that's the initial impact of what happens, but you got to think about long term, what do you think is going to happen? And then again, take little steps to reposition your portfolio. That's my suggestion.
That's your 2 cents.
2 cents worth, yeah. So
No, yeah. I mean, I assume that going forward, yes, there are going to be some changes, and it'll be interesting to see how they impact the markets.
yeah. And listen,
And listen, in the end, listen, I mean, we've also discussed this too. The market just kind of it seems to become its own entity. It seems like no matter exactly how the economy is doing, it's just gonna kind of stay steady. I mean, I don't know if you feel that way, but just feels like to me it's kind of become that way. Because I remember there was a time when it was a couple of years ago. I remember we had 2 straight quarters of negative GDP, but it didn't really, the market really wasn't taking that big a hit. Like, it wasn't reacting like a recession. It would have some down days or a down month, but then it just kind of trickled back up. And then you look to say, okay, I mean, in the end, the past 4 years, it's been up, has it not?
Well, remember 2022, it took a dive, right?
It did take a dive, yes.
So and you think about it, you go back historically and look at when markets really took dives, one of two things happened, really. Either there was a black swan event, right? Or interest rates began to either go up or down, right? I mean, if they go down, they basically, markets love that because it's cheap money. Interest rates go up, market doesn't like that because of the fact that. So that's why we say monetary policy is so much more critical to what can happen in the market, because the cheaper the money, the easier it is to quote unquote borrow and invest, right? The more expensive. I'll give you an example. So closed-end mutual funds, which is an area that we like very much, right? Most of those funds are leveraged, right? So leveraging costs money, and it costs money because it's based on interest rates. The lower the interest rate, right, the cheaper the leverage, the better that closed-end mutual fund was going to do. So those are things that we look at and say, where are interest rates going? Where are they? And what kind of leverage does this particular fund have? And again, it's a leverage of the fund. It's not your leverage. So when you buy it, you're not leveraging their leverage. So the returns are going to be leveraged one way or the other, right? But the point being is that it costs money. So interest rates are a key component of what the cost of money is to leverage, right? Across the board, hedge funds, everybody that leverages, interest rates are key.
Do you anticipate any changes happening to the Fed that could affect interest rates?
So I think...
Because I only say this because, I don't think the president has the power to fire the... what's Jerome Powell?
Powell?
Yeah,
Powell,
he doesn't have the
Fed
power.
chair.
Yeah, the Fed chair. He doesn't have the power to. I think the Fed chair has to be resigned, or the board maybe has to vote him out.
So I think he's got 2 more years.
He's got 2 more years. So, but I don't know whether the president could kind of pressure the Fed chair to resign. I don't know exactly what's maybe.
Yeah, I'm not
is it
sure.
possible that
If
there were a change,
Yeah.
let's say in the Fed chair, how that would affect how you view interest rates? Do you think they would suddenly come down dramatically?
So I think every single president would like to see interest rates come down because it helps, let's face it, it always helps the economy across the board. Presumably, the Fed chair is always apolitical, which I don't think when you look back, that since Volcker,
It's a
I don't think
dubious-
that's been,
yeah.
I'm not sure that's been the case. But I think I mentioned on yesterday, I don't think the Fed is going to lower rates in December for the specific reason that there is a new administration, so they're going to sit back and try to figure out what is it that they're going to do, how's that going to impact the markets, how's that impact inflation, because in essence, inflation is not what it was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, but it's still higher than, first of all, it's still higher than 2%, and it's still there. So, why lower interest rates at this point? And also, anyway, so politically, whether or not they want to lower rates or increase rates is questionable. And they lower rates 50 basis points the first time and then 25, right? And you always wonder, why did do a 50? I mean, most people's like, you do 25 and then another 25, another 20. You give it time to see what the impact is on the market. You do a 50, that's a big impact on the market, and you have no idea what that impact's going to be. So, again, I think the Fed doesn't always do the right thing. Not that I know always what the right thing would be to do. It's not easy because it's a huge economy. But I don't think. I think, given where things are, I don't think they're going to cut rates in December and then take a step back and see what goes on.
I guess we'll.
But you're right. If the new administration had their choice of being able to, and again, I don't think they can do that, but I don't know enough about that. If they had the choice to get rid of the Fed chair, and then I think every administration would say, I'm going to put my guy in there, and I'm going to tell my guy, lower rates,
Trump appointed Powell.
Yes, he did. Yeah. But it wasn't
Yeah,
his
but
first
he
choice.
appointed a lot of people.
That wasn't his first choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. I think anything's on board. I think these next 4 years. So we'll see what.
Yeah. Well, listen. I always say it's in a way this is fun because it is change, and I think change brings life into literally everything, in my opinion. But in particular in the markets, when there's change, it livens something. It creates opportunities because anytime there's call it. Volatility, chaos, right? Anytime there's that in the marketplace, that's when the opportunities pop up, right? If everything is normal and goes up little by little, there's no
You got
opportunities.
nothing to talk about. You just come and say,
But when there's volatility, that's when things sometimes get out of whack, and you look and you show there's no reason why that sector should be down or whatever. And that's when you can take advantage of things.
Well, a philosopher or someone once said the only constants in life is change.
It changed, yeah.
Yeah,
so. Exactly.
Yeah.
Nicholas would know who that was.
That's why we like to change who's hosting today, Mañana.
That's
this way,
right.
the only constant is change. But thank you so much, Pops, for being on the show today. And
No, it's been
sharing
fun.
your
It's
thoughts.
been fun.
Yeah,
I've
it's been
enjoyed it.
It's been a good show. We had two fantastic guests. Sadly, we will have no guests next week, but that's because there's also going to be no show because it's Thanksgiving. So, to all our viewers, again, I always have to send out a little apology. Xavier and I are not on Facebook and Instagram, so to those who liked or made a comment, I do thank you for your comments and your likes, and to all our viewers, I wish I was able to kind of be able to monitor that, but if you have any questions, you could put them in the chat, and I'm sure Nicholas will probably watch or answer whatever questions or recommendations you may have. But yeah, so there's going to be no show next Thursday, but definitely big happy Thanksgiving to all our wonderful viewers who watch. Thanksgiving is always a great holiday.
I love Thanksgiving.
It's just, I don't know why, it's like the perfect springboard into family gatherings that you have up and through Christmas.
Yeah.
It's like starts the holiday season and just kind of lasts till
Yeah. Well, it's what somebody
New
once
Year's.
said. There's Christmas is great, and I love Christmas too, right? But Christmas comes also with the kind of gift giving, right? And sometimes that puts a little stress on people. What do I give them? What, and things of that sort. Thanksgiving is none of that. It's just granted.
Yeah. Christmas. I just don't even want. I just don't get you anything.
But that's the easy part. But that doesn't happen to everybody, right? Some people do want to give me stuff. That's the issue, right? So but Thanksgiving. I mean, other than the person cooking, right? But some people love to cook, so that's good. You just sit there and you just enjoy a meal that typically every year is the same kind of meal, but you look forward to it.
Yeah, you have the same
right?
meal every year.
And you, like you said, you just share a good time with family and friends.
Yeah, I think the problem too is Christmas holidays can get so crazy because it's like, a lot of people travel. And they do for the Thanksgiving holiday, but I just feel like Christmas, like you said, it's like, I got all these presents. Whereas Thanksgiving was just like, okay, no, we're just going to go to grandma's house or go see this family. And then you just go and, like you said, just eat turkey and stuffing and, pumpkin pie. And then, okay, that's it, and you just kind of relax.
Exactly.
And I think you enjoy the day more than Christmas can sometimes get,
overwhelming.
Overwhelming. That's
exactly.
the perfect word. It's get a little overwhelming with these, the Christmas gifts. And then it's like when you got little kids, it's like wrappings everywhere. It's like, I got to clean up all these wrappings and boxes.
They want to open the toys right away.
Toys all the way away.
And the Legos here and there's Legos there.
Exactly. And then who's cleaning up? Then you got, we got to cook. We got to eat today. Yeah, it's hectic. But, it's always, the holiday's always a fun time.
Yeah,
anyway,
it is.
So.
It is.
And we always have a fun time doing Today Mañana, which is always presented by Emergent Financial Services, powered by our wonderful sponsors, Matthias Realty, Craddock Serious Insurance, Charlottesville Opera, and FABA. I'm always happy to be hosting. Thank you.
I'm always happy you're hosting too.
Yeah, I know you don't like hosting, but I'm always happy to have Judah behind the camera, always making us look good. Thank you, obviously, to I Love CVille and Jerry for having us here. We could look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks, but until that time, happy Thanksgiving and hasta mañana.